She mistook a millionaire CEO for her taxi driver, but that mistake changed everything. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain had started as a whisper against the glass, but within minutes, it became a furious drumbeat over San Francisco's hills. Streetlights bled gold through the mist, and every drop seemed to mirror the city's pulse fast, restless, alive. Clara Moon stood under the flickering awning of a juice bar, clutching a paper cup of mint lemonade she had made herself before closing. Her apron was still damp. Her sneakers squeaked with each nervous shift of her weight. It had been another double shift, another night of counting tips that barely made rent. All she wanted was to go home, but her rideshare app froze again. A sleek black Tesla rolled to a stop in front of her. The windows were tinted, the engine so quiet she almost missed it. Clara leaned down, rain dripping from her hair. "Clara? You are here for Clara, right?" she called out. The man inside looked up from his phone, eyes calm but unreadable. "Yeah," he said after a beat. "Get in." Something about his voice, steady, deep, made her hesitate, but the rain grew harsher and she was soaked to her bones. She opened the door and slipped into the passenger seat, the leather cold against her skin. "Sorry," she said breathlessly. "The app was glitching again. You guys must hate when that happens." He glanced at her, brow slightly furrowed. "You guys? You know," she continued, brushing water from her jacket. "Drivers. Everyone treats you like machines, not people. I always say thank you, by the way. I mean, you drive strangers around all night. That is brave." The corner of his mouth twitched. "Brave. That is a new one." Quote. As the Tesla glided onto the wet street, Clara stared out the window. Oblivious to the absurdity of it all, a millionaire CEO in a tailored gray suit driving a girl home from her night shift, mistaken for a taxi driver. But tonight something was off. A few blocks ahead, flashing blue lights painted the fog. Police cars had cordoned off part of the road, and officers waved them to detour. The man's jaw tightened as he steered down a narrow alley that Clara had never seen before. "Is this a shortcut?" she asked, her voice suddenly cautious. He did not answer immediately. The rain hammered the roof, and for a moment, the silence between them felt almost too heavy. Then, calmly, he said, "Trust me. I know the city better than the map does." Clara laughed nervously, clutching the mint lemonade tighter. "That is what every thriller movie says before something goes wrong." "Core. Then I suppose we should make sure it does not," he replied, his tone almost teasing, but his eyes stayed fixed on the road, sharp, unreadable. As they turned back toward the glowing skyline, Clara caught his reflection in the window, expensive watch glinting under the dashboard light, rain beating on his cuff. It hit her that something did not fit. This car was spotless, the scent was subtle and expensive, and his hands, steady, deliberate, did not look like someone who drove for a living. Still, she smiled awkwardly and tried to fill the silence. "You have the cleanest cab I have ever seen. Do you, detail it yourself?" This time he laughed softly, the sound low and smooth. Something like that. Outside, the storm eased into a hush, but Clara's pulse did not. She had no idea that the man sitting next to her was Eli Stone, founder and CEO of Lumapath, the company that lit every streetlight in the city she dreamed of redesigning. And he had no idea that the soaked girl beside him would become the light that changed his life forever. Have you ever made a mistake that felt so wrong, yet somehow led you exactly where you were meant to be? By the next morning, the storm had broken, leaving San Francisco washed clean and strangely quiet. The streets glistened, and the air smelled like wet asphalt and salt from the bay. Inside a small second-floor apartment in the Mission District, Clara Moon stood by the window, sipping instant coffee that tasted more like cardboard than comfort. Her mother was still asleep in the next room, coughing occasionally, the sound muffled behind the thin wall. Clara stared at her cracked phone screen, scrolling through her calendar. The red circle around 10, 0 amperes. City Design Fellowship interview glared at her like a warning light. It was the one chance she had to escape double shifts and unpaid bills. If she got it, she could finally afford to finish her certification and maybe turn her sketches of safer, better-lit neighborhoods into real designs. She set her mug down and checked her shoes still damp from last night's rain. She sighed, slipping them on anyway. The clock ticked toward 8. As she stepped outside, the sun broke through the fog, painting the city in golden light. The same streets she had ridden through the night before now looked almost kind. But as she walked, one thought kept circling in her mind: the driver from last night. He had dropped her off near her block, refusing payment when she tried to hand him a $5 bill. "Keep it," he had said. "Consider it a refund for trusting strangers." Then he had driven off without giving her a chance to say thank you. Clara shook her head, half smiling. "Weird guy," she murmured. By the time she reached the downtown office tower for her interview, her stomach was fluttering. The building's glass facade reflected the sky, impossibly tall, and the revolving doors whispered with the sound of expensive shoes and pressed suits. She felt out of place the moment she stepped inside. The receptionist handed her a badge. "Lumapath, 11th floor. Please wait in the lobby for your slot." Clara blinked. Lumapath? That was the same company she had read about last month, the one developing new lighting systems across the city. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had spent months marking dark corners on her city map, dreaming someone would care about safer streets, and now she was interviewing at the very company that could make it real. She waited on a bench, flipping through her notes, trying not to fidget. Around her, people in tailored clothes scrolled on tablets and murmured into Bluetooth headsets. Her heart raced when the assistant finally called her name. The meeting room was wide, bright, and almost intimidatingly sleek. A panel of 3 interviewers sat at the far end. Behind them, a massive digital display glowed with the company's logo, Lumapath, lighting the future. They asked about her education, her freelance designs, her passion for urban safety. She tried her best to sound confident. But when they asked why she wanted to work there, her voice trembled just a little. "Because light changes everything," she said softly. "It makes people feel safe. It makes the city feel human again. And I have seen what happens when there is not enough of it." The panel exchanged glances. One of them smiled faintly, writing something on his notepad. When the interview ended, Clara thanked them, walked out, and exhaled hard in the elevator. Her knees felt weak, but there was also a flicker of pride in her chest. She stepped back onto the street and looked up at the tower one last time, not realizing that on the top floor behind a tinted wall of glass, Eli Stone had been watching the security footage of the morning's interviews. The man she had mistaken for her taxi driver leaned back in his chair, a small smile tugging at his lips as he replayed the moment she said, "Light makes the city human again." Gone. He had been listening to people talk numbers and profits all morning, but that one line cut through the noise like sunrise through fog. As he turned off the screen, he murmured to himself, "Clara Moon, we meet again, sooner than you think." Outside, the city glimmered under the late morning sun, its light bouncing from window to window like destiny, quietly setting the next move. The following evening, Clara was back at the juice bar, blending smoothies under the soft buzz of fluorescent lights. The place smelled of citrus and mint, and her apron bore a faint green stain from a spilled kale drink. It was just another shift music humming low, customers chatting, the city's evening rush rolling by outside. But when her phone vibrated on the counter, she wiped her hands and checked the screen. A new message blinked in her inbox, from Careers at Lumapath. Com. Subject. Next step. Candidate follow-up. Her heart skipped. The email was brief, polite, and far too formal. "We are pleased to invite you to a networking reception tomorrow evening at Lumapath headquarters. Attendance recommended." A reception? She frowned, unsure whether this was an interview or a fancy rejection letter. Still, something in her told her to go. The next night, Clara stood in front of the same glass tower downtown, only now she was wearing her best outfit, a navy dress she had thrifted months ago and heels that pinched her toes. The lobby sparkled, filled with people who looked like they belonged there. She straightened her shoulders, pretending she did too. Inside, waiters carried trays of champagne, and a string quartet played softly near the elevator. She grabbed a glass of water instead, feeling out of place. Across the room she saw him, Eli Stone. It took her a moment to process. The driver. The man from that rainy night. He stood near a digital display, talking to a group of executives, perfectly composed in a tailored black suit. The light caught the edge of his jaw, sharp and calm, and for a split second their eyes met. Clara froze. The glass in her hand trembled. What on earth is he doing here? Eli's expression barely shifted, just a hint of recognition before he turned away politely. She felt her stomach twist. Did I dream that night? Or did I actually mistake the CEO for a taxi driver? Before she could retreat, a cheerful woman approached her. Hi there. You must be one of the fellowship candidates. Come, we are showing a preview of our urban lighting prototype. Clara followed, still reeling. Her mind was split between the glowing panels and the man across the room who had apparently been testing her without ever saying a word. The demo began. A holographic map of San Francisco lit up in soft blue light. The host explained how their system adjusted brightness to match pedestrian activity. Clara listened, fascinated despite herself. When they asked if anyone had thoughts, she hesitated, then raised her hand. It is beautiful, she said, her voice steady but warm. But light is not only about design or technology. It is about people. If you focus brightness only on traffic zones, you will miss where people actually feel unsafe, like the narrow alleys near the bay, or the underpasses around 19th Street. That is where fear lives. Light should erase fear. The crowd went silent for a heartbeat. Even Eli, standing near the back, looked up. Her words hung in the air, pure and disarming. The host nodded slowly. That is an excellent point, Miss Moon, she replied. Clara Moon. Go. When the presentation ended, Clara tried to leave quietly. But as she reached the elevator, a familiar voice spoke behind her. You left something in my car that night. She turned, startled. Eli stood there, holding something folded in his hand, a worn city map, the corners creased and marked with colorful highlights. You kept that? She asked, stunned. It was hard to ignore, he said. Not many people mark their city by where it is dark. She laughed softly, a little embarrassed. I am a bit obsessed with light, I guess. You should be, he said. Light keeps us honest. There was a pause, an electric silence. The elevator bell chimed, but neither of them moved. He handed her the map. We could use someone who sees things that way. Are you offering me a job? She asked, half joking. Eli's smile was quiet, unreadable. I am offering you a chance. Got. As the doors closed between them, Clara stared down at the map in her hands, her dream drawn in pen and paper, now returned by the man she least expected. Have you ever had a stranger notice something about you that no one else ever did? Sometimes, that is how fate introduces itself. The next morning, Clara woke to a flood of sunlight spilling through the blinds. The city was already alive outside her window, but her mind was still caught somewhere between disbelief and replaying last night. Eli Stone, the man she thought was her driver, the man who turned out to be the CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in San Francisco. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the city map lying beside her pillow, the same one he had returned to her. His words echoed softly in her head. We could use someone who sees things that way. Was that an offer? Or just polite flattery from a man who pitied her? She did not know. Clara spent the day at the juice bar as usual, blending drinks for tourists and delivery riders. But every now and then, her thoughts drifted back to that moment, the look in his eyes, calm and searching, like he was studying her more than her words. That evening, as she was locking up the bar, her phone buzzed. It was a number she did not recognize. Miss Moon, the voice said when she answered. This is Hannah from Lumapath. Mr. Stone has reviewed your portfolio and would like you to assist our community project team. It is a temporary position, but he requested you specifically. Clara blinked, leaning against the counter for balance. He what? You will receive an email with the details. The project starts tomorrow. When the call ended, she just stood there, stunned. A smile spread slowly across her face. She looked down at her shoes scuffed, sticky from juice spills, and laughed to herself. The next day at Lumapath headquarters, she was a bundle of nerves. The glass elevators glided silently, and everything smelled faintly of polished metal and citrus. Hannah from HR led her to a collaborative workspace overlooking the bay. Mr. Stone will join you later, Hannah said. Your task is to help us analyze pedestrian zones for better lighting coverage. When Eli finally entered, the room seemed to quiet itself. He was wearing a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up, and there was an ease about him that felt different from last night's formality. Welcome to Lumapath, Clara, he said. I hope we did not interrupt your other commitments. Unless you count pouring kale into blenders, she said, trying to sound casual. He chuckled. Then we are glad to have saved you from that. The rest of the day was filled with work, data, and unexpected laughter. Eli listened more than he spoke, occasionally leaning over her screen to study the points she marked on the city map. "You focus on the corners most people overlook," he observed. "Why?" "Because those are the ones that matter," she said. "That is where fear hides. No one talks about it until something bad happens." He nodded, his expression softening. "You sound like someone who has lived in those shadows." For a moment, she almost replied, but then she caught herself. "Maybe I just notice what others ignore." As evening fell, Eli walked her out to the lobby. The glass doors reflected the glow of the city's streetlights, their own creations flickering across the skyline. "You know," Clara said, glancing at him, "I never really thanked you for that night." "You do not need to," he replied. "It was just a ride." She smiled faintly. "A ride that apparently changed my entire week." Eli laughed under his breath. "You make it sound dramatic." "Cree." "Maybe it was," she said quietly. "Or maybe it was just light finding a new path." He paused then, watching her step out into the golden glow of the street. Something in her simplicity disarmed him. It was not charm, not ambition, it was honesty. The kind of honesty he had almost forgotten existed in his world of glass walls and boardrooms. That night, Clara rode the train home with a strange flutter in her chest. She looked out the window as the city blurred past every streetlight, now a little brighter, a little more alive. She thought about fate, and how sometimes it did not shout. Sometimes it just whispered, "Get in," and changed everything after. Have you ever met someone who made you see your everyday world completely differently, as if you had been living in the dark until they turned on the light? Over the next few weeks, Clara found herself returning to the glass tower on Market Street almost every day. Her contract said temporary consultant, but the rhythm of the work and the quiet presence of Eli Stone made it feel like something more. Her small desk sat near the panoramic window that overlooked the bay. From there, she could see the city come alive every evening, lights rippling across the streets like veins of gold. It reminded her why she was here, and why she loved light in the first place. Eli visited the workspace often, usually unannounced. He would pull up a chair beside her and ask, "What are you seeing today?" And somehow, that question never felt like small talk. One afternoon, as she spread out her latest report across the desk, he leaned over her shoulder, scanning the colored pins she had marked on the digital map. "You are mapping light patterns by emotion," he said quietly. "That is not part of the assignment." Clara smiled without looking up. "It is not, but people do not move by numbers. They move by feeling. If a street feels unsafe, it does not matter how bright it looks on paper." Eli was silent for a moment, then nodded. "You are right. Maybe that is what we have been missing." They spent the next hour refining the design. Every time their hands brushed while reaching for the same keyboard, Clara's heart skipped. She told herself it was just nerves. But even she could not ignore the way his eyes softened when he listened, or the rare, unguarded smile that appeared when she said something unexpected. That evening, Eli asked if she wanted to see the prototype test site. "It is not far," he said. "Just a small block in Soma we have been working on." They drove together through the city dusk, the same streets that had once been drenched in rain now glowing in soft amber light. When they stopped, Eli stepped out first and gestured toward the sidewalk. The lamps around them adjusted automatically as they moved, illuminating each step. The light followed like a living thing, gentle and warm. Clara's eyes widened. "You made the light follow people?" "Exactly," Eli said. "Light that sees you, not just shines on you." She walked slowly down the street, her shadow trailing behind her, dissolving and reappearing as the lights shifted. For a moment, she forgot everything: the bills, the exhaustion, the constant worry. It felt like walking through a dream she had once drawn on her old city map. "You see this?" Eli said, joining her. "This is the first block of what we call Project Clarity." Clara froze. "Clarity?" "It was inspired by something you said at the reception," he continued, watching her face. "Light should erase fear. We want this to be a place where people feel safe enough to walk home, even after midnight." The name hit her like a heartbeat. Her name and his together, Clara and Eli Clarity. She smiled, shaking her head. "That is a strange coincidence." "Maybe not a coincidence," he said softly. The silence between them was easy this time. The wind from the bay carried the faint scent of salt and jasmine. "You know," Clara said, glancing up at the street lamps, "most people never look up. They never realize how much light is doing for them. And yet you always did," Eli replied. Their eyes met, the glow around them reflecting in both their faces. Something fragile and new hovered between them, something neither of them wanted to name yet. Later that night, as Clara rode home, she looked out at the lights passing by her window. They seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heart, a quiet melody that whispered possibilities. In the dark reflection of the train glass, she saw her own faint smile and thought about him. The man she once called a driver. The man who somehow kept showing her the light she had been chasing all her life. She wondered if he felt it too. A week later, the world around Clara seemed brighter than usual. Every morning, she walked through the revolving doors of LumaPath with a smile she tried to hide. Her project was gaining attention inside the company, and more teams had started asking for her feedback. Still, she could not ignore how her heart reacted whenever Eli Stone entered the room. He never said much, never crossed any line, but his quiet attention carried weight. A glance from him felt like being seen in a way that both comforted and terrified her. One Friday afternoon, the company buzzed with excitement. Posters were going up everywhere announcing the City Light Gala, a formal event celebrating LumaPath's 10th anniversary. Clara read the words twice. A night to unveil our newest initiative, Project Clarity. Her stomach dropped. Clarity? She whispered. The name that felt so personal, the name that came from a late-night conversation between them, was now printed in gold across every wall. She told herself it had to be a coincidence. Eli had hundreds of employees. Maybe the team had just liked the name. But doubt crept in like a slow shadow. That evening, as she was packing up her things, Hannah from HR stopped by her desk. "You are invited to the gala, Clara. Mr. Stone requested that all project consultants attend. Formal dress code. It is a big night." Clara nodded, forcing a smile. "Of course, I will be there." The next evening, the ballroom shimmered with crystal chandeliers and white roses. City leaders, investors, and journalists filled the space. Clara stood near the back, feeling small in her borrowed silver dress. The lights dimmed, and the crowd hushed. On the stage, a voice echoed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the visionary behind LumaPath and tonight's honoree, Mr. Eli Stone." Applause erupted. Clara's breath caught. Eli walked to the podium, the spotlight wrapping around him. He looked calm, confident, and unreachable. "Tonight," he began, "we celebrate not just technology, but the simple idea that light can make cities feel human again." The words hit her like a punch. They were hers, the exact sentence she had said during her interview weeks ago. "That belief inspired our newest initiative," he continued. "A system designed to light the forgotten corners of San Francisco. We call it Project Clarity." The name echoed through the hall, and everyone applauded. Cameras flashed. Champagne glasses clinked. Clara stood frozen, her pulse thundering in her ears. He had used it. He had taken her words, her idea, her dream, and turned it into his public triumph. Hannah passed by, whispering, "Can you believe it? That name is genius. Clarity, so poetic." Clara swallowed hard. "Yeah," she said quietly, "poetic." She turned away before anyone could see her face. The room blurred under the chandelier light. She walked out through the side door, the applause still ringing in her head. Outside, the night air was cold and sharp. Her heels clicked against the pavement as she headed for the street. She wanted to scream, but instead she laughed bitterly. "Of course," she muttered. "That is what I get for trusting a stranger." Behind her, she heard the door open. Eli's voice followed, low but certain. "Clara, wait." She did not. "Clara, please." She stopped halfway down the steps, turning just enough to face him. "Was this your plan all along? Use my words, my idea, and make it sound like yours?" "No," he said quickly. "It was not like that." "Then what was it like?" she demanded. "Because from where I am standing, it looks like the rich man wins again." Eli stepped closer, but she shook her head. "You said light keeps us honest," she said. "So tell me, what part of this is honest?" For the first time since she had met him, Eli looked unsteady. His hands fell to his sides, and his voice softened. "Clara, please. I named it after you, after us. Clarity. I thought it would honor what you inspired." Her heart twisted, but she did not let it show. "You could have asked. That is what honest people do." Then she walked away, leaving him standing on the marble steps under his own perfect lights while hers went out, one by one. Would you have forgiven him in that moment? Or would you have walked away too, even if a part of you still cared? For 3 days, Clara did not return to LumaPath. She ignored every email and every call that came from the office. Her phone kept lighting up with messages from unknown numbers until one of them finally showed his name. "Eli Stone. Please let me explain." She deleted it without reading further. The city that once felt bright now seemed cruelly lit. every street lamp reminding her of what he had done. Project Clarity. The very words made her stomach tighten. Her idea, her name, her voice, borrowed and branded as his legacy. At the juice bar, her coworker Mia noticed her silence. "You have been off lately," Mia said gently. "Is it about that guy from your work?" Clara forced a smile. "It is nothing. Just a mistake I should have never made." That night, she walked home through the Mission District. The lights flickered above her, uneven, tired. She stopped under one of them, watching the weak glow tremble across the pavement. This was one of the blocks she had marked on her old map, the places she wanted to fix, the streets she had dreamed of making safer. And now the company that stole her dream was about to install her vision all over the city. A part of her wanted to feel proud that her idea would help people. But the hurt ran too deep. Kindness did not erase betrayal. The next morning, Clara found an envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a letter on thick stationery and a small flash drive. "Clara, I know you do not want to hear from me, but please watch what is on this drive before you decide what to believe. Eli." Her first instinct was to throw it away. But something, maybe curiosity, maybe anger, made her plug it into her old laptop. The screen flickered, and a video started playing. It was a recording from the gala, but from a different angle. After Eli had finished his speech, the footage continued, showing him on stage, speaking privately to a group of investors after the crowd dispersed. "Project Clarity was inspired by Clara Moon," he said clearly. "She is the one who made me see light differently. Without her, this would not exist." Clara froze. Her hands trembled as she paused the video. He had credited her, but the broadcast cameras had already cut off before that moment. No one else had seen it. Her chest tightened with guilt and confusion. She replayed the clip, watching his face, the sincerity in his tone. But then another thought hit her. Why did he not tell her this in person? Why send a recording instead of facing her? She closed the laptop, overwhelmed. The next morning, she gathered her courage and went back to the Lumapath building. The receptionist looked startled when she walked in. "Miss Moon, Mr. Stone has been asking about you every day." Clara's pulse quickened. "Is he here?" "He has been in the design lab since sunrise. You can go in." When she entered, Eli was standing by the window, his suit jacket off, his tie loose. The model of the new lighting grid glowed on the table beside him. He looked exhausted, but when he saw her, relief softened his face. "Clara," he said quietly, "thank you for coming." "I watched your video," she said, her voice steady but cold. "You credited me off camera. Why?" "Because it was never about the credit," he replied. "It was about meaning, the name, the project. It all came from you. But I wanted the world to focus on what we were building, not on me or you." "You still should have told me," she said. "I thought you stole it." Eli nodded. "I know. That was my mistake." There was silence between them, heavy but honest. "You once said light should erase fear," he said finally. "Then let it erase this too. Let me make it right." Quote. Clara looked at him, unsure whether to believe him or walk away again. Her heart was torn between logic and longing. "I do not know if I can trust you," she whispered. "Then let me prove that you can," he said. "Not with words, with what comes next." As she turned to leave, she glanced back one last time. For the first time since the gala, the light in that building felt warm again. 2 weeks passed without a word from Eli Stone. Clara returned to her routine's morning shifts at the juice bar, evening walks through the same dimly lit streets, but something inside her felt hollow. She told herself she was over it, that she had moved on. Yet every time she saw the glow of a new Lumapath streetlight, her chest tightened. They were calling it Project Clarity everywhere now. Billboards, news articles, even social media, her idea shining in every corner of the city. One gray afternoon, she was cleaning the counter when her coworker Mia nudged her. "Hey, you see this?" Mia said, holding out her phone. "The city's doing a big light exhibition tonight. Looks like your old company's behind it." Clara glanced at the screen. The announcement read, "Grand Opening, the City of Clarity, a celebration of light and community." She froze. The photo showed the exact street she had marked first on her map months ago, the darkest one in the Mission District. Mia smiled. "You should go. You love this stuff." Clara hesitated. She wanted to refuse, but curiosity and something deeper pushed her forward. By evening, the entire block near the bay was transformed. String lights hung above like constellations, and dozens of glowing lanterns lined the sidewalks. Families wandered in awe. Street musicians played soft jazz, and children chased each other under the lights. Clara stood at the edge of the crowd, her heart pounding. Then she noticed a banner near the stage. Inspiration. Clara Moon. Her breath caught. Before she could process it, the lights dimmed, and a voice came through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for the launch of Project Clarity. But before we begin, I want to tell you a story about how this all started. The crowd turned toward the stage, where Eli Stone stood in a black suit, holding a microphone. His voice was calm, but his eyes searched the crowd and then stopped. "A few months ago," he continued, "a woman sat in my car one rainy night, thinking I was her driver. She talked about how light could make a city feel safe again. She carried a map covered in notes, highlighting the forgotten corners that most of us never see. That conversation changed the way I see everything." Clara felt tears sting her eyes. People murmured, turning to look around, wondering who he was talking about. "Her name," Eli said, his gaze steady on her, "is Clara Moon. She reminded me that light is not just about technology, it is about empathy. It is about seeing people who are invisible. Tonight's project, and every light you see here, exists because of her." The crowd erupted in applause. Camera flashes lit up the street like fireworks. Clara covered her mouth, shaking her head in disbelief. Eli stepped down from the stage, moving through the crowd until he reached her. The applause softened to a murmur. "You said I should have asked," he said quietly. "So now I am asking, will you help me build the rest of this city?" Clara could barely speak. "Eli, why are you doing this?" "Because you were right. Light keeps us honest, and I cannot build something true without the person who inspired it." She felt every wall she had built start to crack. Around them, the new lights brightened, casting a warm glow over the entire street. The once-forgotten block shimmered with color and life. For a long moment, they just stood there, both silent, both knowing something had shifted forever. Clara finally smiled through her tears. "I guess I should say thank you." "No," Eli said softly. "Thank you for letting me see the world the way you do." Above them, one final beam of light shot upward, splitting the clouds to reveal the faint shimmer of stars. The following months unfolded like a quiet sunrise. What began as a misunderstanding in the rain had turned into something extraordinary. Clara joined the LumaPath design team full-time, working side by side with Eli on expanding Project Clarity to every neighborhood in San Francisco. Each morning she arrived early, carrying her coffee and her old folded map, the same one she had drawn on long before she ever met him. It had creases and stains, but now the blank spaces were slowly filling in with new lights and safe paths. The city was changing. People began calling it the City of Clarity. Newspapers featured it as a model of urban renewal. But for Clara, it was more than headlines. It was proof that hope could come from mistakes, and that light could grow from pain. One evening, she found herself walking with Eli through the same block where everything had begun. The string lights above them swayed softly in the ocean breeze. The sounds of laughter drifted from a nearby cafe. For once, the night felt peaceful. "It looks different now," she said. "Because of you," Eli replied. She shook her head. "Because of us. You listened when most people would not." He smiled at that, but his eyes were thoughtful. "You know, when I first met you, I thought I was helping a stranger get home. I did not realize you would end up showing me where home really was." They stopped at the corner where the first lamppost had been installed. The plaque at its base gleamed under the light. "Dedicated to those who believe every city deserves its glow." Clara brushed her fingers over the engraving. "You did not have to do that." "Yes, I did," Eli said quietly. "It reminds me how one small act of mistake even can start something we never planned." A gentle silence stretched between them. The street light above flickered for a second, then steadied again, washing them both in gold. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked. "The rain, the car, the confusion?" "Every day," he said. "It was the best wrong turn I ever took." She laughed softly, and he reached for her hand. The warmth of his fingers against hers felt certain, grounded like the light that no longer wavered above them. They walked along the waterfront until they reached a small platform overlooking the bay. The city glowed behind them, the bridge shimmering in the distance. Eli turned to face her. "Clara," he began, his voice steady, "I spent years building things that lit the world but left me in the dark. You changed that. You showed me that light means nothing unless it reaches someone's heart. So this He reached into his coat and pulled out a small silver ring engraved with a single word: clarity. "This is not just a proposal," he said. "It is a promise that I will keep choosing honesty, kindness, and you every day." Tears filled her eyes, but her smile was sure. "You realize this all started because I thought you were my taxi driver, right?" Eli laughed, shaking his head. "And I am still trying to earn that $5 tip." She laughed through her tears, and the sound blended with the hum of the city around them. When she finally nodded, he slipped the ring onto her finger, and the moment felt like light itself, warm, endless, forgiving. Around them, the street lights brightened slightly, as if the city were quietly celebrating with them. Clara leaned her head against his shoulder, watching the reflections dance across the water. "Funny," she whispered. "All it took was one wrong ride." "No," Eli said, his voice gentle. "It took the right person in the wrong car." The camera of memory would have ended there, the two of them standing beneath the glow of their own creation, the skyline pulsing like a heartbeat, the city of clarity. The proof that love and justice do not always come loud, they arrive softly, like light through fog. Have you ever made a mistake that turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to you? Sometimes destiny wears the disguise of coincidence, and the road you were never meant to take becomes the one that leads you home.